Welcome back once again to OPC Season 2 as we're about to head into the second match of the evening. It is week 4 and we are starting the second round robin. The match that does come up now is Flash Wolves against Libalent Supreme.
Libalent are kind of in a tight spot after the first round robin. They unfortunately failed to pick up a single series win. They did pick up one map win though, and that was actually against Flash Wolves themselves, interestingly enough. On King's Row specifically. Hopefully they can repeat that, but certainly this is a team that really needs to pick up some wins. And to be honest, they've probably got the toughest opening match here to that end. This is not an easy team for them to pick up that much needed win against, but from here on out, every loss really piles on the pressure.
And Libalent Supreme definitely start with the most difficult run through in the second round robin. Let's look at Flash Wolves first though. These guys are currently sitting pretty comfortable second place, 6-1 in the standings, and it's going to be Jongi on the tank line. Support is played by Sinclair, Bacon Jake on offense, Zonda on offense, K-Momo on flex, and Realmint on support.
And of course, coming up against them is going to be Libalent Supreme from Japan, Pepper on the offense, Jasper on the flex, Darriton on tanks, Keisuke on support, Selene their second support, and a debuting new player, Ryan, tonight on offense. He is replacing Hotate, who had to unfortunately leave for personal reasons, and was at least able to stick with them throughout the final of that first round robin, because there was actually the potential he wasn't going to be there for the last day of games, but now this team has had to have a really tight turnaround with this new player in offense now. They've had the 1 week to turn that around, and like we said as well, because of their ultimate finish in the first round robin, really have an uphill battle. They have to come together very, very fast.
And it's a tight turnaround time as well. 0-7 you can see in the standings, 8th place so far. 1-21 is their map record. That one win they got was against Flash Wolves, and now they have to at least repeat that, get that one win back against Flash Wolves now, get themselves up to at least a 2-win map record, because you got to think Flash Wolves are favored in this matchup, especially when you have a Libalent Supreme lineup coming in with a brand new player. Ryan is from 7th Heaven, which is another Japanese organization. He's just recently landed in Taiwan as well. Hotate has only just recently departed from Taiwan, going back to Japan to continue his studies, actually something I found out about the team. Another interesting tidbit is it's kind of a little bit more complicated, but essentially Pepper is replacing Hotate and Ryan is replacing Pepper. So Pepper is going to be picking up the heroes that Hotate did play. In this case, it's going to be mainly the Genji, I would assume, because you're not really going to be going on to the Doomfist.
The Doomfist is kind of out.
In the sort of sense where the Doomfist has had the hitbox change nerfed. That being said, we haven't seen Pepper on those heroes before. You might actually have a situation where actually Pepper just plays other hit scans like McCree, or he picks up the soldier instead. So that's something that's also really interesting, because then they can play a Flash Wolves style of gameplay where it's Ryan on the tracer and then you have Pepper on the soldier as well. And Ryan, by the way, is a tracer specialist.
Exactly. So like that's kind of an interesting situation, you're right, because honestly, Pepper was their tracer main, you're right, but when they were running that Doomfist McCree, that was him that they were running for, that McCree. So some teams have been kind of opting into the tracer player popping onto the Doomfist. So that's actually kind of a saving grace for them here, assuming, of course, Ryan is a solid enough tracer to kind of fill Pepper's shoes in that regard, which you'd assume he is, by the way, given that that's how the swap is all changing around. But actually, that flexibility they've had out of Pepper is actually really going to pay off for them here. That being said, like we said, they're going to need a lot more than just a good tracer player. And by the way, do just have a little bit of a delay, so do just kind of stick tight with us for a while.
Yeah, so, you know, I probably should kind of mention at this point, while the delay is happening, we will be going to another short break. So in the meantime, hopefully those issues are sorted, but when we do come back, Flash Wolves will be taking on Ardian, and that happens very soon. Thank you for sticking through that break with us, and technical issues are now resolved. The players are ready to go. Flash Wolves against Libalent Supreme. That's what we've got.
And we've already kind of touched on this a little bit, and here, of course, is Libalent Supreme with new player Ryan, like we said. And to kind of recap on all that, Libalent Supreme after the first round robin, 0-7. They need series wins and they need them fast if they're going to have any hope of making playoffs. There are no two ways about that. They've also had a very short turnaround with this new player Ryan, and they have a really tough challenge out the gate here.
Right, the pre-match interview here, a couple of thoughts from both sides. Coach Ray representing Flash Wolves and the new player Ryan from Libalent Supreme.
まあ、僕入れて初の OPC なので、ここで流れを変えたいと思います。お願いします。
好的，因为这次是他
So since it's my first time at the OPC,
所以希望今天就是可以为 LS 带来新
I
气
hope
象。
I can make Libalent Supreme proud.
就是听说LS 换了一个
So I heard we had a new member coming in.
好像是他在日本拿过一个冠军，对。
So he's won in Japan as well.
我们很期待，然后再来就是
We're very excited to
最近控制图
meet him.
其实第一张地图输的几率蛮高
And we've lost a lot of control so far.
今天我们在控制图的状况能好
And hope we can sort of turn around our losses on that game mode and turn things around starting this round robin.
It's kind of interesting that he said that actually, because of course Libalent Supreme in the last round robin was one of the few teams they did win control against and then lost hybrid instead. But look, all's well that ends well, because they still won the series, and actually that's been reflected in the scores as well. Because like I said just before that interview, this is a really tough challenge out the gate for Libalent. The only thing that would be tougher would, strictly speaking, be Ardent, but the match record speaks for itself. Flash Wolves, second place, had the closest series anyone's had yet against Ardent. They are all but secure in the playoff spot, and on the flip side of this, of course, for Flash Wolves, every win they pick up from here on out makes that spot more and more secure.
And this is about staying in second place as well. You don't want to have a situation where Hong Kong Attitude actually catches up, and they are threatening that, because Hong Kong Attitude, they need one more win, then suddenly they're on 6 just like Flash Wolves. It only takes Flash Wolves to lose another match for them to put themselves behind. So Hong Kong Attitude definitely hot on Flash Wolves' heels. On the other hand, you got to look at Libalent Supreme. They need to have something on the scoreboard, and we do have to go back to the old storyline of, look, Japanese teams in the OPC so far, from Season 1 at least, have not had the best track record.
Yeah.
Coming into Season 2, unfortunately, still not the best track record. They have time to turn that around, but that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
It's almost a little bit unfortunate, really. And the thing we've been saying is new team, same Japan. And that's the thing, is this team is way better than the likes of what Sun Sister and Detonator Gold both were across Season 1. They earned their spot in Season 2 rightfully through the promotion relegation tournament. But honestly, the overall caliber of play has increased a whole ton. And that's what Libalent Supreme are kind of feeling now coming into this. I do just want to touch on one last thing though, regarding Flash Wolves. And this is just to make everyone, I suppose, aware of the fact that I say they are secure, but that is certainly not a guaranteed thing, because you touched on Hong Kong Attitude being hot on their heels. This is still an important win for them to pick up, because a loss here, followed by, for example, losses against Hong Kong Attitude, Blank, and AHQ, who are all very able to beat this team, would actually have them not making playoffs. There is no team in this tournament still, and that does include Ardent, that can properly rest on their laurels. And indeed, we won't get that until next weekend at the very earliest.
And certainly we've got to get past this matchup first. And for a team like for Flash Wolves, they haven't had the best run through OPC Season 2 yet. And when I'm talking about best run, I'm talking about the fact that they are second place, which is good. They have picked up 6 wins and only 1 loss, but among those 6 wins, it's been hard fought the entire way. Their actual map record is 19-11, whereas Ardent's sitting at 21-1. So 19-11, they've dropped the map to every single team they've faced so far. All 7 teams in the OPC have picked up at least 1 map win against this team so far.
That's a club. Like how we've got teams,
it's a new club.
It's a new
and
club.
Everyone's very excited to be a member. Yeah. So they got in quick. Everyone got in quick.
Yeah, it's not really as exclusive as some other clubs, like, because we have the club of like teams that have beaten Blank on Assault, which is always growing in membership, by the way, but there are still some teams who haven't quite claimed that one just yet. But yeah, like in this in the space of 1 round robin, I think the more exclusive club would actually be teams that have beaten beaten Flash Wolves on Hybrid specifically, because that's a club that currently consists only of Ardent and Libalent Supreme.
All right, let's talk about Libalent a little bit more in detail, because this is their new player, Ryan, from 7th Heaven. And as Coach Ray sort of mentioned, look, Ryan has had some wins locally in Japan, but now he's on a bigger stage. He's on the OPC, it's the Overwatch Pacific Championship, featuring the best teams across Asia Pacific. It's not just Japan anymore. And if this team is going to turn things around, certainly it's a trial by fire because Ryan has to debut in OPC against the Flash Wolves.
You do wonder a little bit about that name, don't you, Seventh Heaven? Like, it makes me wonder what happened to the first 6. Like, was this the first successful iteration of Heaven? Was that like the 7th, that took them all the way up to number 7? And then we finally got it, we got it right, but then we lost Rion, so... But in any case, you actually make a really good point there. And the other thing as well, he's going to be opposite Bacon Jack. The comparison is going to be naturally drawn, and we are unlikely to see Bacon Jack on Doomfist. So we are almost certain to see a Tracer Mirror matchup here. If we don't, it will be because, I don't know, maybe both teams opt into Junkrats or completely different things altogether.
And you do have to consider that spanner in the works because both teams can go into Orisas, can go into Junkrats. We've already seen that coming out of Blank and Hong Kong Attitude so far. Certainly Flash Wolves, they're not afraid of experimenting. Look, Zonda's got a big hero pool. You often see him on stuff like Mei. He's playing Sombra now. He's got a Genji in the back pocket. He can still play McCree. He was just playing Doomfist. So the possibility of now Zonda maybe bringing out a Junkrat, I think is definitely up for grabs. You also have new player Ryan coming on the team. Pepper has now the ability to demonstrate what his hero pool depth looks like.
Absolutely.
Because he's got to fill in for Hotare, who was that flex DPS, and now what can Pepper play? Is it just going to be Tracer Soldier, in which case Pepper plays the Soldier, or are we going to see some experimentation?
And like we said, we have actually seen those inklings of Pepper's capability. Look, he's been good at the Tracer. He's been able to play both actually the Soldier and the McCree. We know he can play those hit scan DPSs. The questions are more regarding those picks like Genji and indeed even picks like Junkrat for himself or Sombra and those such kinds of pickups, because that's what Hotare has been playing. Again, unlikely to see Doomfist. That may be a bit of a saving grace for Pepper, arguably, because he won't necessarily have the same time on that as he will those hit scan DPSs, but this is an opportunity for him to, on the one hand, kind of fill in the boots and prove that he can have that diversity. But on the other hand, assuming he does have that diversity, it's actually a real big chance for this guy to shine.
Absolutely, and I think, you want to go back on the other side of the DPS combo. It does remind me of AHQ somewhat because you are bringing a brand new Tracer Specialist who hasn't really had that experience. Yes, he's had some success locally in Japan, but now debuting onto OPC, it's certainly a much bigger step, certainly a much bigger challenge. And Japan has unfortunately not had the greatest run in OPC history. We'll see if they can change history now. Map pick goes to Flash Wolves, and they're going to start with Lee Jung Tower.
Yeah, again, just kind of sticking to what is known, what is measurable, as it were. And they said themselves, they've not had a good run this season at all on Control. They have dropped Control pretty much every series they've played,
Except
with a few
one.
exceptions. Yeah, except for this one against Libalent. But that's the thing, like, you certainly don't want to start dropping that against Libalent now, especially when you've obviously put in some effort to improving it. So a win on this doesn't mean that they've got Control down pat, given that this was one of the teams they beat on Control in the first round robin. A loss on it rather, would be pretty disastrous.
I think so as well, especially for a team that has been coming in specifically working on this game mode. It's akin to Blank with Assault, right? Blank came in and they said, from one of the post-match interviews, or rather even one of the pre-match interviews from last round robin, they said, we need to work on Assault. We don't play enough Assault. We have to get this under control. And they actually got their Assault win against Hong Kong Attitude. Unfortunately, they didn't get any of the other map mode wins. So now we're onto the Flash Wolves side of things. They have the same issue on Control. So have they now addressed that? And if they have, they need to win that and show it against Libalent Supreme. Otherwise, if they lose it against Libalent Supreme, they look like they're going to lose it against everyone else too.
That being said, it would be a pretty sweet way to start this series off for Libalent Supreme, because new player or no, they know that they can actually beat Flash Wolves on Hybrid as well, which would then be their pick. So actually Libalent very much hungry to have stepped up their own game and join that club of teams that have beaten Flash Wolves on Control. This now is their opportunity to do so.
And a lot riding on the line for the Libalent side, and specifically, what is this new play going to look like? We talk about the fact that Pepper needs to step up and fill into Hotare's shoes, but also Ryan filling into Pepper's old shoes, into the Tracer boots, into the Tracer teleporter, the Blink. How's he going to look?
The thing we haven't actually talked about is, as much as Ryan is up against Bacon Jack here, and we are indeed looking like we'll see a Tracer Mirror, Pepper actually now has to come head-to-head against Zonda with that role swap, and that is potentially an equally terrifying prospect.
This actually looks pretty good for Libalent Supreme. As long as they can get this area control, make sure they spam the grenades down this corridor, they're fine. And already you're seeing a lot of damage placed onto Zonda. This is where Flashwell's gonna make that big flank play. And if they can get the big flank, suddenly Pepper's in trouble.
Good respect being given to Bacon Jack as well. They're trying to keep this Junkrat safe and sound, but the dive is good. Pepper will pick Zonda. They get a couple of kind of hits back, but it's not really enough to dislodge Flashwells. Honestly, there was a brief window there for Bacon Jack to get pressured out, and actually good execution by Flashwells to not let him get caught out and go down and ultimately follow up.
And absolutely, that's important because we did see the area control coming up from Flashwells as well. They were able to get the flank that was mentioned. Zonda went in, despite losing his own life, he opened up the backline, he opened up the entire push for his team. Flashwells cleaned up extremely well. They got all those kills, and Libalent Supreme already on the back foot, but they did at least charge a bunch of ultimates.
This Junkrat is going to be tricky to get off because of the divers here, and the Riptide getting killed as well is a little unfortunate. That could have been a swing for them, but they're still going to get aggressive anyway. Already losing Darrington, though, is a bit of a rough way to go, and they're just not getting these counter trades, unfortunately. Zonda as well, getting the pressure in on the dive, and you've got to start to consider that maybe Libalent need to move on to something a bit more mobile with Flashwells actually running this Doomfist.
Well, they are going to try and attempt this push and continue things going because getting a kill into Realment does give them an opening. Getting the Pulse Bomb against Bacon Jack as well. Now they're starting to get in a position where they can start to win these fights.
That's a huge pick on Celine as well. Cuts him just shy of that Transcendence, whereas Sinclair had committed his own and converted well. And the pressure out of Flashwells is just unrelenting out of the tank and 2 DPS combo here.
So far, it does also appear that Zonda's has this accuracy on the Rocket Punch on lockdown. Despite the hitbox nerf, he has still landed on targets. He isn't specifically going onto rather high-value targets, low HP targets like Ryan and Pepper, but he is nailing the tanks, and at least something is being done. He's disrupting that tank line with Libalent Supreme. Now they're collecting ultimates, and he picks up supports as well, so he's not in trouble.
Huge aggressive hold. He has to use the Meteor Strike just to preserve his life, but he's going to be able to convert a kill off it as well, kind of having his cake and eating it too. Libalent have opted to swap onto the Soldier, someone that can maybe hold their own a bit better on this dive, but they have yet to actually find a foothold in.
And this now looks like the Libalent Supreme lineup that we're talking about. Kind of prefer Pepper to actually go into the McCree here. Counters out Bacon Jack a lot better. Counters out Zonda a lot better. Gives you a fighting chance against Jongi as well. The Soldier's going to struggle, and Libalent Supreme don't have time to really make anything else work.
Unfortunately, they do not, but they kind of have to go now as well. 99%, and they are able to sneak someone over onto the point. Actually, maybe able to sneak a cap as well if Flashwells aren't careful, because Zonda getting picked off is actually a really good start for Libalent, and they get punished for the aggressive defense now as they wheel back towards the point. They find themselves a little bit surrounded. Good pressure onto Celine, but finally getting closed out and actually looked like he was going to live for a little bit. There's been some counter trades still out of Libalent, but they're starting to look a little lean on resources. Jasper will remech, but they're very low all across the board, and it's only Kasuke to top them off. This is where Bacon Jack can start to shine. No one to stop him, no one to tell him no, and he is going to absolutely drive this one home for Flashwells to set them 1-0 up.
And a very clean 1-0 up as well, 100% to 0, and they didn't lose a single fight there. They never looked like they were really threatened to lose a fight. The biggest chance that Libalent Supreme had was the fact that they killed Realment at the start of one of them. They got Zonda in a different one, but they never really had any sort of advantage. They never got a big string of kills that really put Flashwells on the back foot. At every turning point, it seemed like Flashwells were in control of that cap, and they never lost it.
Honestly, Bacon Jack's pressure across the board as well was really, really solid. And even when he wasn't able to fully exert that pressure, Flashwells were still not taking their foot off the gas. That was very, very nicely handled by Flashwells.
Now we're going to see, again, a little bit more versatility out of the Libalent Supreme side, but it's not really a versatility you're looking for, it's execution. You can run the Junkrat if you want to, you can run the Pharmacy if you want to, but you got to make it work. Certainly now the Pharmacy has a good matchup against both Bacon Jack and Zonda, two of the issues that Libalent Supreme had on the Control Center. Let's see if that works out now for them on Night Market.
And also Zonda, despite the changes, despite the nerfs to the Doomfist, is still picking it and still thriving on it. And already we're seeing the aggression that comes out of these three here between Jongi, Zonda, and Bacon Jack, converted instantly in the opening skirmish. Realment may go down on the backside, but even then, actually going to be able to scrape out with his life there. Pepper may control the skies, but Flashwell's going to control the point.
And that's actually more important here because progress is key. Progress is what wins you the fight at the end of the day, wins you the entire map. We want to talk about Zonda as well, the fact that he's still picking the Doomfist. The big change for Zonda is actually just different target selection. As previously mentioned, you're not going to go for the Tracers anymore because you'll miss them, but you can go for tanks very easily. That's going to help your team burn down that front line.
and they know how to really make that work as well. They know how to open up that option for them. But Zonda now actually getting a little bit pressured by Pepper here. Does need to be careful. The shots are just barely going wide. This is so unfortunate, and he will, of course, be able to Meteor Strike back to safety.
Oh, big one.
Wow, getting 2 as he punches down. One of those was Jasper, who kind of had no say in the matter. He was getting demexed, but Ryan as well, getting picked out by that is huge for Flash Wolves.
We're still yet to see the real pressure come out of the pharmacy. We're now about to hit the resurrection, finally. But 2 fight wins in the bag now for Flash Wolves. A lot of ults coming online. Zonda already used one to really secure things against Libalent Supreme. And now we're on the back foot for LS, and they are still behind. We're yet to see them really take control of the game. They didn't do that at Control Center, and it doesn't look like they're doing it yet on Night Market.
And there's also these defensive ultimates coming up for Flash Wolves that Libalent kind of have to get damage through. Ryan getting one clip by Bacon Jack is massive.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna that's gonna hurt in the morning for
Kinda,
this
yeah.
new Tracer player. You got up against Bacon Jack straight away.
And already this is just Flash Wolves converting off the back of that 1 kill. Selene knows better than to commit the res, but he is going to die for it. And actually this means Flash Wolves are actually going to extend their ultimate lead.
And by the way, this is when Libalent Supreme wished that Flash Wolves had actually used ultimates, because they've also been holding on to theirs. But while they've been holding on to theirs, Flash Wolves are the ones actually picking up on progress. And Zonda's, he's already halfway to his next Meteor Strike. So for Flash Wolves, they've been playing quite conservatively. They've played quite lean, and that definitely works in their favor. You got to get a big res play here. That's probably the only real way that Libalent Supreme come in.
They've really got to get the pressure down hard, and Selene, the opening pick, is so unfortunate because that big race play you were talking about, my friend, not on the table anymore. And already Bacon Jack keeping the pressure on. Libalent dove for the point and are just getting pincered in now. They don't have the resources here. That is a decent rocket barrage, but just no conversion, as I believe K-Momo was in position to absorb that. And on the whole, that entire map was just controlled start to finish by Flash Wolves.
Absolutely, and they've managed to continue showing exactly how to play this Doom composition, which has been their primary composition so far. The other one is Bacon Jack actually picking up the Doomfist himself, and then Zonda playing the McCree. And actually it looks like, despite the nerfs as already mentioned, Zonda hasn't had any problems playing the Doomfist. He just has to change his targeting. And then you've got to consider for Bacon Jack as well. Maybe he also doesn't have problems playing the Doomfist. And for Flash Wolves, this is a really big strength for the team because it shows, despite the change-ups, other teams are much more affected. You have a team like Blank, where Huss is no longer willing to play. You have a team like Hong Kong Attitude. Mui's no longer willing to play. Shailin's no longer willing to play. But Flash Wolves, they're doing it, and they can make it work. And now they're in the lead 1-0 so far, comfortably on Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the fact, actually, that they are sticking on to this Doomfist. Like, it's a nerf. It is a nerf. There's no two ways about that. But he's not unplayable. The damage is all still there. The mobility is all still there. He's just a little bit more in line, like you said, in terms of what he can and can't go for. And that makes sense, right? It sucks when a DPS can just attack every single person and get away with it. But Zonda, understanding that he can still get the Doomfist to pay off when his target selection is good, has actually just off the cuff put this team ahead of everyone else we've seen so far today that has shied away from that Doomfist. This is a Flash Wolves that is now looking to lead the pack in this second round robin, and that's a really significant change.
And I think, you know, we talk about versatility definitely on the Libalent Supreme side, but actually versatility on the Flash Wolves side says we can stick to our guns on what we've been practicing, what we've been making work. Other teams now have to go back to something they haven't practiced for a while after playing majority Doomfist. Flash Wolves don't look like they have that weakness.
And they look clean.
That's now a strict, exactly. It's not even like, oh, the Doomfist nerf has really hit us and we're not having the same impact. I don't think they are having the same impact because you're not getting the free kills on Traces, not getting the free kills on all the supports, but Zonda is still making it work for his team. And Flash Wolves, you're right, still looking clean despite the changes, despite other teams feeling like it's not working for them. Flash Wolves make it work.
And it helps in terms of not being able to one-shot those Tracers when you've got someone like Bacon Jack on your own team with that Tracer who does a great job of keeping those enemy team Tracers down and keeping them busy and even having impact. Indeed, as a whole, Flash Wolves are great at actually dealing with all those people that Doomfist has been able to one-shot previously. And that's the thing, right? All of these teams actually played in a time where there was no Doomfist one-shotting. They had to kind of deal with those other heroes the old-fashioned way, if you will. And actually, Flash Wolves have just kind of pulled those other members back to playing that style while keeping the Doomfist. I really respect how well they've actually adapted to this patch.
And by the way, Flash Wolves at any time can go back to what they were already doing, which is the Tracer Soldier, which is the default also for a team like Libalent Supreme. You did see them go on that for Control Center, and that's you can kind of tell that look, Pharmacy is not going to be their default, Junkrat's not going to be their default, Tracer Soldier is going to be their strength, and that makes sense because Pepper is a hit scan player. Moving from Tracer onto Hotare's role, the biggest hero he picks up is of course going to be the Soldier, which he kind of played anyway. So that's definitely where you see Libalent Supreme moving towards. But for Flash Wolves, they don't even have to do that yet. Teams usually have to force Flash Wolves to change back onto that.
Yes.
You have to beat Zonda out. You have to say, Zonda, you can't play Doomfist. I'm sorry. You think it's working. We're going to make you go on the Soldier. That's when Flash Wolves feel like they're on the back foot. But actually, they look even stronger on that older composition. You're not even there yet.
That's the thing. Even then, actually, Tracer Soldier is what Flash Wolves won Season 1 with. It was unparalleled in this entire tournament.
They wrote the script on it.
That's the thing, right? When your reserve strategy is still better than what anyone else was able to do, when that's what you were playing constantly, that's a pretty comfy spot to be in all told.
Yeah, it feels like their plan B is stronger than, you know, a team like Libalent Supreme's plan A at this stage.
Exactly.
They're not even at the plan B yet. Their plan A hasn't even been cracked. You're not even at plan B, and their plan B actually feel like it's stronger because as we get into the replays here, hopefully you'll be able to see part of the reason why Zonda was so successful, and he had a lot of moments here when, look at the target selection, he's going specifically for tanks most of the time. This is the part of the change up now for the new Doomfist. You're not going to get the one-shot kills on the Tracer because the hitbox isn't going to land. You might not get it on the Lucios either, but you are going to get it on a variety of other targets, specifically the bigger ones, and this is just going to be cleanup now. And by the way, Zonda still getting pickup kills on stuff like the Seismic Slam, you can still get the pickup kills on Meteor Strikes and everything around, and it's a fairly simple run through for Libalent Supreme. You can see the ultimate's being used there for them. So if you want to address the macro game as well, it's not like Libalent Supreme had a situation where, oh, they just didn't get to use ults. They actually used everything. The one that really hurt them was Selene dying with the
exactly. Unfortunately, not being able to get that off, you're right, was pretty significant. But there's something I do want to touch on the Doomfist as well, because it was very apparent in that replay, and whether or not he actually plays any more Doomfist tonight, like, this is part of what the success has been for those who are wondering. Look, he just can't go as deep anymore, but he was still very present in those fights. If anything, by being more kind of ducking in and out of those fights, he was a lot more resilient, because suddenly in the thick of it, exactly, in the thick of it, your target selection is like, I am faced with these two tanks and the Doomfist, rather than the Doomfist diving deep, needing the tanks to follow up, where you actually had a window to pick him. How do you even get onto this guy? He's playing it very, very nicely, ducking and weaving in and out of the fights, utilizing that mobility to great effect, and still using the damage output where it really counts. It's just been really,
It actually feels like the old Zonda in Season 1 playing Genji, except with better burst options. Because by the way, Block the Punch still does a ton of damage if you land it, and it's not very hard to land it on the tanks. Yeah, you're not going to get the kills onto like other DPSs and supports as easily, but everything else is absolutely fine. But gotta move on now to King's Road, and Libalent Supreme want to repeat prior success.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not quite going to join the club of teams that beat Flash Wolves on Control, but they are going to try and renew their membership for beating them on Hybrid. Like we said, technically that's a more exclusive club. The only other team that has done that to Flash Wolves so far has been Ardiant, who were also the only team so far this tournament to actually beat Flash Wolves. So
I was going to say, just beating Flash Wolves is pretty exclusive.
That's the thing.
If you can do that, that's, you know.
So the thing is here, this is actually still very doable for Libalent Supreme. I have to say though, there are some very real questions over Ryan right now. Not as in he's underperforming, but certainly he hasn't been able to go off just yet. And look, a lot of that has just been Flash Wolves' clean play on Lijiang that we just saw. Hopefully here on King's Row, he's actually going to have the opportunities to really pull that weight. I mean, they've brought in this Tracer specialist. They've had all the change-ups. They didn't just bring in a straight roll-for-roll replacement for Hotare, so they obviously respect this guy's Tracer play. We just need to see that come out in-game.
And by the way, it's not just about bringing this new guy in. You've now sort of changed up two positions because Pepper's moved into Hotare's role, but actually they haven't had a lot of time to practice. It does feel like Blank in week 1, where Blank still looks reasonably fresh. Now, Blank brought in 2 new members, so that's kind of parallel. This time around, you brought in 1 new member, but you changed up 2 positions. So as far as I know, and you can probably go on Twitter to confirm this if you follow Libalent Supreme on there, but you can sort of tell that only this week, this past week that's just been, did Ryan actually land in Taipei and Hotare actually leave Taipei. So you have a situation where this team is still rather fresh in terms of gelling with this new member.
Exactly. And I mean, we said it all from the start. Look, they are in dire straits here, being 0-7 at the end of the first round robin. Really, they're not a team that can actually afford the time to gel together with these new members, but unfortunately they have no choice.
And actually, this is probably the best start that you want if this is a new team, because it is a very hard one, but this was always going to be a difficult game with or without Hotare. So if this was going to be difficult no matter what, then you certainly want to play the hard games first and have the gelling ready to go for the games you're more expected to win.
Certainly trial by fire. That's generally how the best iron is
Let's see
forged.
what Bacon Jack does now.
Yeah, let's see what Bacon Jack does now indeed. He's going to be on the Doomfist. We've seen him on the Doomfist with Zonda running the McCree because he is a great McCree, but Libalent going to stick on this long gun, short gun.
Yeah, they're going to play version 1 Flash Wolves from OPC Season 1, and Flash Wolves...
Flash Wolves are going to play themselves from the past.
I don't know what version of Flash Wolves we're up to here, but it's certainly quite advanced.
Yeah, well, and Darrington is the first to get picked off, so certainly it would suggest that Flash Wolves 2.0 is so far overcoming Flash Wolves 1.0.
Well, it is T800 versus T1000. We know how that story goes, but actually, because we know how that story goes, maybe on a map like Kings Row, we actually do see a Chinero. Bacon Jack picks up a kill to Ryan, but not with the rocket punch. So yeah, you can still actually get these important kills. You're going to have to rely on other resources though.
Good trade kill on K-Momo though. They actually have a window while he's rejoining the team, and they have taken advantage of it. They got pressure on the point, and we'll probably get a third here as well. Actually, maybe being a little bit more timid than necessary, and that's going to be the ultimate already out of Zonda to zone them back. So suddenly Flash Roll's now going to be able to retake the ground they just lost. Instant conversion onto Diariton. Really late kind of Transcendence out of Selene, and if they did start converting kills, by the way, Sinclair's own Transcendence was there, but they don't even need that. They're just getting the kills. Libalent getting really pounded back here.
And Flash was only using one ultimate. They used a Deadeye. Zonda got no kills with that, but it zones Libalent Supreme back. It gives you the spacing, and Flash Wolves, they're great at taking the space. Darton jumps and dies. You're right, Selene uses the Transcendence rather late, doesn't save Darton, and then after Transcendence, Ryan dies anyway. And already 1 minute 30 off the clock for Libalent Supreme's only attack.
This is really, really rough already. And there we go again. Bacon Jack, you talked about that target selection on the tanks. They got the sound barrier to keep them safe through this one as well. But they're just converting left, right, and center.
These guys are stuck.
Yeah, Ryan isn't even able to take advantage of Sinclair on the backside. And you're right, they're completely stuck. Jasper's not getting out of this with his mech. And he's going to have to die here as well. That's going to waste even more time for Libalent, who have already run out of half
Actually,
of their
they're going
time.
to leave him. They're going to leave him, and that's even worse because now you have to rebuild this mech. In fact, it could be worse if you're trying to rebuild the mech and then you die while you're doing that. And certainly it's a possibility. Jasper will be able to remake. Libalent Supreme, though, they still lose members.
Doesn't even matter that he remakes because Zonda is able to get the shots on Selene. They got a trade kill on Jongi, though. This is a window. Selene will rejoin first, and Bacon Jack going to try and cut that off with this Meteor Strike.
Oh, he's so deep.
Yeah, forces Libalent back, but you're right, very deep. Transcendence is great from Sinclair to save his team, and that's a good kill, though, out of Jasper self-destruct. They need to get aggressive now, and they've got the ultimates to finally convert with this tactical visor out. They have to still battle through Bacon Jack, who's going to make it hard, but Pepper really putting in the groundwork. K-Momo's mech killed Jasper's mech on the recall. That's not what you see often.
That is a new one.
I've never seen that one before. I've seen some mech recall kills, but in any case, fight's still kind of going out on the point, and actually Libalent have finally got the numbers advantage here. Flash Wolves are going to fight to the last, but the trickle kills here are a little bit unfortunate for them. The timing on the kills ended up working out very nicely for Libalent, and they are going to get the cap.
Well, I'll tell you what, Flash Wolves, that was all on their own demise because Bacon Jack handed that one over to Libalent Supreme. Despite the fact that Bacon Jack survived, he forced a Transcendence out of Sinclair at an inopportune time. Sinclair doesn't want to have to use Transcendence, but he has to just to save Bacon Jack, who got a little bit too greedy on the Meteor Strike. Then Zonda couldn't find any targets as well. He was caught out, and Pepper had a field day. Target selection was so good on the tactical visor. He completely cleaned up the Flash Wolves, and now they get A. So we're starting to see now movement.
And his soldier really shone there. It wasn't just the tactical visor, by the way. That's a great opening as well. The pulse bomb onto Bacon Jack. Selene's going to have to use the Transcendence, but they're happy to use that one because they've got a huge numbers advantage here. Going to get a lot of momentum as Flash Wolves' attempt at an early hold is going to get completely flattened. Now Libalent really going to get some momentum on their side.
And momentum is exactly how they won Kings Row last time. They get a lot of good push onto B, then they make sure, well actually last time it was them defending first and they held B. So this time around, they're going to have to try and push it all the way, but a lot of distance is going to be really good. Pepper picking up the last kill onto Zonda as well, really going to be allowing this momentum to continue on through. Take a look at the ultimates for Libalent Supreme. A lot of them are about to come online. That's really important to continue the snowball.
Yeah, they've really got some great set up here as they kind of round the bend. This is essentially the last fight for Flash Wolves to defend before B, and already low health as Rion's Pulse Bomb really chunks K-Momo. That's a good window for Libalent. Hard to take full advantage of, but they've still got the positioning on the rest of this as K-Momo kind of has to go deep. As the Meteor Strike from Bacon Jack to get into the fight, though, trying to get onto the back line. They do get the sound barrier in to follow it up, but he hasn't actually converted yet. Needs to be careful to not be too deep. The defensive ultimate's all out from Flash Wolves, but that's a huge self-destruct from Jasper, followed by the Deadeye, and Libalent weather the storm from Flash Wolves, who really threw everything they had just then, and they completely flattened Flash Wolves in response. No one died from Libalent.
Absolutely, and they're still rolling on through. This is so important. The plays coming up from Libalent as well in the specific order is really important to notice. Jasper, D-Mech, K-Momo. Immediately after that happened, Pepper used the Deadeye. That was the only thing they were waiting on. And by the way, Deadeye countering out the Transcendence from Sinclair so extremely well, and Ryan feeling that one right in his face.
Unfortunately, yeah, a really nice shot from Zonda. I believe that was a flashbang shot. Jasper just barely kept the mech, by the way, but at any rate, Flash Wolves had the opportunity to press the go button. They're not actually going to convert much more off the back of this. They're happy to take the 3, though, because they have stalled up Libalent.
And this is important for Flash Wolves because we're already on to C. By the way, last time we were on Kings Road between these two teams, Libalent already won by this push because they actually finished B. Flash Wolves now, this is the best time to defend, the best part of the map to actually defend. And Zonda wants to turn with this Deadeye as well, but cancelling.
What a headshot. And that Deadeye has actually isolated Jasper. He's going to be able to retreat safely, so they don't get too much leverage out of that ultimate. But the pick on Darrington, plus that extra bit of stall, has actually burned about a minute off the clock total.
Absolutely, and for Libalent Supreme now, you still have to be very much in danger of not capping out fully because you're right, the timing is probably the most important factor to consider. And Flash Wolves, they've really turned on the heat because so far it has been a lot of Libalent Supreme fight wins in the Streets phase. Now that we're into C, Flash Wolves are getting so aggressive here, it's like they're still holding Streets.
Flash Wolves are just in their element. That's really what's happening here. They are happy playing this far forward. They know they've got the space and time too. They also know they've got the ultimates too. And every time they get a single pick, because of how aggressively they're positioned, they're able to absolutely rout Libalent and get almost a full team wipe.
And by the way, the cart has nearly retreated and backed its way up to exactly where it started. We're already seeing the ultimates coming out of Libalent Supreme.
Just so that they could save Jasper. They tried to do it with the Transcendence, but he'd already committed a self-destruct. And now again, Flash Wolves, who already had an ultimate advantage, by the way, can just commit what few ultimates they need. This time around, it's just going to be the Deadeye and Transcendence. And again, we've got a whole string of kills coming through for them.
And we've seen this phenomenon before. I'm struggling to remember exactly which team. Oh, he kills Darkin here. That's disgusting.
That would be rough.
But we've seen this from other teams. I believe it was AHQ against another team where they completely held them in the spawn. And this is much more difficult to do here in this exact position than it is to do if you were actually on the Streets phase. Because, by the way, Libalent Supreme have the spawn advantage, and yet they cannot push on out.
And I mentioned it before, but you really saw it there. Zonda's positioning to catch Pepper on the retreat path. And they'll do it again if they get the opportunity. But good opening on Bacon Jack. He's going to get followed up on by Ryan. Nice work by him there. Zonda's going to have to pull back, and they will be able to get the cart back underway. The ultimate as well from Darrington. Unfortunately, going down to the self-destruct. And by the way, Jasper, who did not have the self-destruct after using it last time, isn't going to have that option. Gets D-Mech, gets taken down, and already Flash Wolves have got this one on knockdown once again.
And by the way, Bacon Jack dying gave Libalent Supreme the opening that they needed, but Flash Wolves also saved a bunch of ultimates. They had such a good string of kills previously, such a good string of fight wins, they never had to use ultimates. So despite Bacon Jack dying, it's not enough because you just managed to get past the ults now.
Bacon Jack again trying to get on these tanks who are diving in without the support just yet. Zonda able to take out his counterpart is so huge because that's the Deadeye out of Pepper off the table, and the aggression is all on out of Flash Wolves now. So they're getting the picks. No one can touch Zonda on this backline, and they can't even deal with this front line in Bacon Jack and Jongi. How can Libalent even overcome this? They've even swapped off that McCree with the ultimate just so they can get back into the fight, but it's still not going to pay off for them as Pepper not even going to touch the cart. They will get held up just past B.
And this is now Flash Wolves flipping the script and saying, look, last time was a fluke. You're not going to beat us on Kings Row again. This time, we get to attack into your defense, and you're going to have to hold us at B. We already know that Libalent Supreme can actually hold B. They can actually hold the streets to make sure that Flash Wolves don't get past. But that attack onto C, that was not convincing by them at all.
And Flash Wolves are looking good. I will say, though, like you said, they've held on B before. That's the saving grace for this team, combined with their own offense on the streets phase. They actually had a very high momentum offense. They won a good early fight. They won a good fight when they got the cap as well. And they also won a good fight that got it over the line of B, because that was in that same position. And in fact, with a further away respawn for Libalent Supreme. So on the whole, actually, really good fights did come out of them. They just weren't able to get it further.
The only thing I'll say about this, the Flashwolf side so far is now we've had a chance to compare the Doomfist from both Bacon Jack and Zonda. And I want to say Zonda's Doomfist a lot safer. I think you were the one that really pointed out, but he's dying a lot less. He's making a lot safer plays. Bacon Jack, on the other hand, he's still putting himself in very dangerous positions, using very greedy media strikes. And if you look at A, that could have been an entire full A hold for Flashwolves, but Bacon Jack handed it to Libalent Supreme on a silver platter. Managed to not do that the second time around, at least on the Cap C, so Flashwolves are able to hold, but I want to say not as clean as Zonda's Doomfist so far.
Yeah, like by comparison, you're right. Zonda pretty much didn't die on that Doomfist. I'd be hard-pressed to remember him dying on Lijiang Tower on Doomfist, but certainly still not terrible Doomfist play rather out of Bacon Jack. Like let's not mince our words here. He still performed phenomenally, and that shows in where they were able to hold.
Well, this is the thing. The trade-off is Zonda plays safer, but maybe doesn't get as many kills. Bacon Jack gets more kills, but also dies more often and potentially loses you a fight because he gets taken out early. So that's kind of the trade-off you're looking for here, and we're going to see the same thing now out of Flashwolves again, repeating their success if they can find it.
And we're seeing the same thing as well out of Libalent. And honestly, Pepper's Soldier was a real huge factor for them cracking point A in the first place. I really expect good things out of him here.
And certainly I had no problems with the McCree from Pepper either. They had the right composition. You want the McCree to counter on Bacon Jack on the Doomfist, and I think they did that, but they didn't do the other part of it, which is beat the rest of Flashwolves.
The pressure is already good out of Flashwolves as well, and honestly, these healers having to really work overtime, but the follow-up is there. Bacon Jack, great aggression, and already cracked this point wide open. This is as good as capped. It is all clean up from here.
And this is where you can see Bacon Jack's effect with the damage here, because his damage output on the Doomfist is definitely still there. He had a triple knock-up with the Seismic Slam. You have a position where Libalent Supreme, playing so defensively, they don't even want to address this attack from Flashwolves. They're immediately hiding behind the corner, at least getting the kill into Realman. That's like a second place silver medal right there that they can sort of feel good about.
To be honest, if they want to hold on B, they're going to have to take an early fight. It's going to have to be a good one. And they have to honestly bleed Flashwolves for every second they can get throughout the Streets phase.
And they certainly can do that because we're still into the early stages of this defense. And the reason we're into early stages is because A wasn't really a factor. So Ultimate's not really coming online for teams very quickly at the moment, but they will very soon as we head into the bookstore. And for Libalent Supreme, you want to be opening up now and sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the team's getting the first of Flashwolves as well. The Deadeye was just kind of to create a bit more space for Flashwolves to play with, but it's actually Ryan who draws first blood in this fight. That's a real saving grace for them. And Flashwolves smartly backing up. Bacon Jack as well kind of had to meteor strike a little bit further back than he would have liked, but he pays it off by getting a pick on Darrington. They're trying to convert a few more, but yeah, Pepper opening up with this tactical visor. Unfortunately, coming a little bit late though, because Flashwolves are kind of already pulled back past this choke point. They're a little lean on ultimates now.
And it does feel a little bit greedy to use the tac visor there because Flashwolves already backed out, and now Flashwolves coming with the counter attack instead.
Instant re-engage with the sound barrier, and it converts as they get onto Celine. Look at how deep they're playing. The pressure here is obvious. Even if they don't get kills, which by the way they don't, it's only Celine they pick, they're getting distance. That's what's going to count here, because that's what Libalent is trying to rob them of.
And it's not just distance, it's distance plus time, and that's what's really scary about this team. Even if Flashwolves get repelled now, it doesn't really matter. They have so much more time to work with than Libalent Supreme did on their own attack. Flashwolves, honestly, setting themselves up to win. Libalent Supreme, though, the saving grace is they have ultimate advantage. What are they going to do with that? They can win if they try to get this done properly.
But they don't have tabs on Zonda, and they don't know exactly where to separate themselves to. That could cost them, and it's Darrington who pops his head out, gets picked. Already, this is looking rough. They need to convert trade kills quickly, and Jasper's self-destruct isn't going to be the ultimate that does it. They have to commit the Transcendence just to keep Jasper alive as he remix. They will get Darrington to rejoin them, and they haven't actually lost too many members just yet. Sound barrier as well to kind of get the safety back, as Jasper does lose his mech. Unfortunately, the tactical visor not finding much, but they still get a kill on Bacon Jack, and it's going to be a game of inches here. The trade kills do favor Libalent, but now Flashwolves are starting to get kills that are going unanswered. They need to convert a few more still. Pulse Bomb from Ryan goes wide, and Darrington can stall this out, but Flashwolves aren't going to give this up without a fight, and it does seem that at long last, Darrington and Ryan are going to end that fight for Flashwolves.
And Zonda stayed alive for so long, by the way. He just didn't go down. You actually see a lack of support. You actually see a lack of backline pressure against Flashwolves from the Libalent Supreme side. They're just not really putting that much pressure onto Zonda. They finally get him, but that was after Bacon Jack went down. That was after Flashwolves' front line already got open up. Then they said, this is time we go into Zonda. They need to get on there a lot quicker because they can kill Zonda, and they should.
Insta-gib onto Pepper, though, is huge. That's a huge opening, and they convert with this sound barrier area as well. Zonda does get pressured. There haven't been any further kills yet for Flash Wolves, but there's still been no answer out of Libalent. The Meteor Strike could be what does it because they've isolated Sleep. Oh my goodness! A 3K out of the one Meteor Strike, and the conversion is instantaneous. Beck and Jack even getting the pilot form Diva for good measure, and all they got to do now is wheel it round the corner.
Absolutely, and they can definitely do that because they have the ultimates to do that as well. Transcendence coming now online. Jongi's got the Primal Rage. You can use everything you want to. Pepper now changing onto the McCree. A little bit too late. Maybe a little, could be a saving grace, so that is a little bit more time bought.
But they aren't going to let them have this one easy. They're going to make it as hard as possible for Libalent to even touch the cart to stall it. Bacon Jack, unfortunately, taking a bit of a dive through the air there. Jongi is having a good gentleman's duel with Darrington. Jasper needs to commit a self-destructive, but no one on the card. And they pay for it. That was such an unfortunate end for Libalent. But to be honest with you, there wasn't exactly a point where they were having a convincing hold anyway.
It's certainly a far cry from what we saw in terms of Flash Wolves' hold. This is now going to be that triple kill Meteor Strike.
This is
beautiful. I had a few questions about this because you weren't too sure exactly who was going to land on. It looked like it was just Selene, but then somewhere in there, Ryan and Keisuke decide to join the party, but not the kind of party you want to be at.
Yeah, they're sort of like, I don't know, is it like a mutual agreement thing? Like, I don't want to say suicide pact, but like...
I got dark.
It really, I mean, it feels like they were like, you know what? Selene was like, I'm sick of always being the guy that dies first. I'm sick of being targeted because I'm a Zenyatta. And they were like, all right, let's show a bit of solidarity here with our healer who really puts his robotic neck on the line for the rest of us constantly. So, I mean, a good kind of show of brotherly love, as it were, out of Keisuke and Ryan. But, I mean, they lost the game because of it.
Well, let's now take a look at the updated standings in the series. So far, 2-0 Flash Wolves picking up Kings Row as well. So they at least get their revenge against Libalent Supreme on this map. Let's go now into the replay. And this is going to be the attack coming from Libalent Supreme with 2 minutes remaining. And if I'm not mistaken, they do manage to push it out on this one specifically. And it comes off the back of Bacon Jake, already using the Meteor Strike there to get a little bit aggressive. Transcendence coming out from Sinclair as well. And by the way, both of the defensive ultimates being used there, that's the kill onto King Momo's Mick that I'm talking about that really allows Pepper to get that Deadeye kill off it. By the way, this fight happens after a string of fight wins on streets already, so it's a momentum fight win for them.
Exactly, and it's actually exactly the same way that they were winning the fights on streets phase. This is what I kind of call like a classic fight win, right? Because what basically happened, they had fairly even ultimates across the board, but Libalent came in applying the pressure. Flash Wolves sort of tried to answer it, but the damage output and setup was really great from Libalent. They played it very, very well, had positioned correctly throughout the whole thing, dealt with everything that Flash Wolves started throwing at them, and then Flash Wolves were in the position where they had to commit ultimates just to kind of stay afloat and stay alive. In that situation, they needed to convert kills, but again, Libalent read the situation correctly and could just swing back with more ultimates once Flash Wolves had exhausted their options. And that's the thing, is actually we see that happen to Flash Wolves very rarely, so that is credit to Libalent for actually really putting them on the rocks there.
But actually for Flash Wolves as well, despite that happening, when you get to C, and again, this is the phenomenon, because at C, you actually have a much harder time doing that hold that they did because the attacker spawn is so much better than it is in streets. They have a much better hold on C really aggressively on the spawn than they did ever on the entire street. So all Flash Wolves needed was one situation, one fight where they stabilize, and then they're good from then on out. They never have another situation where they really lose control. It just looks like Lee Jung Tao. As soon as they get the cap, as soon as they stabilize, they win one fight, that's it. They get a huge string, even more strings, or even a much longer string than Libalent Supreme had.
And the thing is, if you want to cast your minds back to when Libalent Supreme did beat them on Kings Row in the first round robin, actually we'll take a look at the replay here, which was Flash Wolves ultimately getting it over the line to take the map. Now look, Libalent already had an uphill battle at this point. I would dare say Flash Wolves were probably going to win anyway, but there was just this unfortunate moment. Flash Wolves had made it hard for them to get onto the point. That was a bit of a spicy one, Bacon Jack taking an unfortunate dive. But here's the thing. Darrington gets bumped off by Jongi, and then there's just this unfortunate moment where Jasper was pressured off and Darrington was pressured off, and therefore no one was on the point. It was really unfortunate because actually the self-destruct out of Jasper, which was about to come out, could have totally changed things. Had any of the DPSs been able to get there, could have totally changed things. Look, maybe they wouldn't have stabilized and they probably would have still been overcome, but it's just a shame for it to have happened right there and then rather than them getting that extra chance.
Exactly, because that was probably their best chance to get that opportunity opportunity because that's where Flashwell's got their C hold, where they stabilize as well. You get an opening pick onto Zonda from Pepper, then Bacon Jack Suicide as well. I don't think you have a better opening than that. Both the DPSs, both the problematic DPSs on Flashwell's immediately taken out. Suddenly, it's a situation where, yeah, you lost one, but 5v4. You can put yourself in a winning position, but great job from the Flashwells to pressure out the tanks on the Libalent Supreme side and force that cap win when Libalent Supreme weren't looking.
And like I said, if you want to cast your mind back to when Libalent Supreme did beat Flashwells on Kings Row, it's the fact that they were able to break that Flashwells defense not once but twice. Whereas this time around, they only broke it the once, and it was on point A. That momentum carried them through streets, but once the defense was reestablished, it was hard ingrained and it was not going to budge. And unfortunately, that was enough to overcome Libalent Supreme here.
Now we're in a sort of situation where Flashwells are 2-0 up. The third map is Assault. It's also Flashwells' pick because, by the way, it's their home side, so it doesn't really get any easier for Libalent Supreme, and it just looks like the hill for them to climb suddenly turns into a mountain, and we're staring into the face of a potential 3-0 victory for Flashwells, which, by the way, isn't totally unexpected, but would be a very rough start to the second round robin for Libalent Supreme. But that third map will be coming up very, very soon. Once again, Flashwells' pick, and that's all happening after this break, so don't go anywhere. Hello and welcome back to OPC Season 2. We're about to head into map number 3 of the series, the second match of the evening in the second round robin. Flashals against Libalent Supreme, and it's going to be Flashals now getting their revenge win on Kings Row and looking like they're ready for a 3-0 victory.
And that's the thing, you can see it all there. 2-0 up, not only do they seem to have tidied up Control, which was the map they had traditionally been losing in the first round robin, they also beat Libalent on Hybrid, specifically on Kings Row, which was the map they had dropped to them last time. So on the whole, this rematch is already looking cleaner for Flash Wolves, and for what could be our last match, it's certainly not over yet, they are going to take us to Horizon Lunar Colony.
Absolutely, and this is still going to be a good map for Doomfist, so I'm still expecting either Zonda or Bacon Jack to pull this one out, and they have been showing once again it is working. They know how to work it, and they know exactly how to execute and just get these wins on the board against Libalent Supreme, who still look like they're unable to find a winning formula. At least though, you got to be able to commend Tracer Soldier. For them looks like their best composition so far. They just need to get that further and actually grab a win from it.
I really like Horizon Lunar Colony, just in general. I just want to put that out there, because I was thinking about this the other day, right? Winston is from the moon. Winston is from the moon. Like every Overwatch character is from somewhere, and they've all got like an accent from that place, and generally speaking, the accents are like fairly faithful. Look, I'm not gonna get too in detail there, but Winston is from the moon. Specifically, he's from here, right? And like the only people around him were like various scientists and other gorillas. Like, that's not an accent that exists. Like, for someone, like, I don't know, he's just got a good moon gorilla voice. Like, when someone tells me, like, he's a gorilla from the moon and he's a scientist, somehow, like, Winston sounds exactly like that. That's just beautiful.
I don't think I've thought about it that deeply.
I have. I've thought about this in great depth. I was actually sitting, in a hot tub just yesterday, thinking about exactly this.
That's probably why.
Looking up at the moon.
I only have shower thoughts. I don't have hot tub thoughts.
Well, there we go. You need to get a hot tub, and like it'll increase the caliber of your shower thoughts. It's like a shower thought turned up to 11. It's an incredible experience. And then you turn the bubbles on. It's like, wow. I mean, also hot tubs are just really nice. Kind of enjoying it while we had a bit of a cold snap. It's like the last cold days of the year we're gonna get. I'm just making the most out of the hot tub before like the humidity turns your body into a swamp, and a hot tub would be the worst thing ever.
So when we get to Southern Hemisphere summer, that's when your thoughts sort of just disappear.
Yeah,
and I don't know, things get really basic.
I get air conditioning thoughts instead, where I just like lie there under a ceiling fan.
That sounds dangerous. Anyway.
Only if you're in Korea. This is, in any case, it's going to be Flash Wolves opting onto the defense first, and this is actually going to be a Junkrat.
And actually, this works well for Libalent Supreme because immediately you have a guy like Pepper that can snipe out Zonda on the Junkrat. That's a very easy pickup, 200 HP character that sort of, I was going to say, needs some pretty good angles to play with, but at the same time, if you know how to bounce grenades, you also don't need the angles to play with, so it's kind of 50-50 there.
Yeah, I mean, or you could just kill Jasper with 2 mines. I mean, that's got a really... That's kind of insult to injury there, right? Like, you use your mech, you lose the mech to a mine, and then you die to one as well.
And by the way, you have to consider that Jasper on the Diva should be the one countering out the damage from Zonda, because Junkrat at the moment, yes, the mines are good, but also the mines get eaten up by a good Matrix, and that's what happens from a guy like Jasper if he can land those matrices properly.
Actually, the plural is matrices.
Matrices.
Yeah, you were right the first time before you corrected yourself. You should have stuck to your guns, buddy.
I should have been in the hot tub.
Speaking of sticking to their guns, Libalent are going to stick on the Widowmaker, as well. And they need to get a pick out of it. That's a really good kind of sky-high moment from Zonda there. The trade immediately comes in onto Pepper, though. So this is really unfortunate kind of for Libalent Supreme because they're sort of even in DPSs, but they don't get the extra pressure out of the Widowmaker's positioning.
They kind of need some picks out of Pepper here because we're saying the same thing that we did when we saw Mui play the Widowmaker against Blank, and we're not seeing the results from Pepper right now.
Instant conversion by Jongi with that nano boost on top of him. The pulse bomb on Jasper is going to help him secure that mech. Already Libalent really just getting beaten back constantly in these fights. Ryan will barely get out, but if Pepper goes down here again, especially late in the fight, no, it's Rion who goes down. That's even worse.
And this is, by the way, you know, that previous fight all happening with Zonda was when Zonda actually went down. Yes, Pepper went down as well, but Pepper wasn't super impactful in the fight so far anyway. Zonda has been. He's got a number of kills already. He's got a ton of damage, and for Flash Wolves, right now, he's sitting on a pretty decent ultimate if he can land this one.
Honestly, the Riptire could really swing this. I mean, we often talk about pulse bombs. So far, though, teams have been good at shutting down that Riptire, which is certainly to be expected at this level of play. But, I mean, all it takes is for one quick pick. And honestly, that's the open up as Jasper gets demech. There you go. Yeah, good nano, though, onto Darrington. But they're just not getting the mileage out of it. Bacon Jack getting pressured off on the point itself. He's going to have to pull back, wait for his team to join him. But Flash Wolves can just kind of sit back for a moment, use the extra space created by K-Momo self-destruct there. He will be able to get back into his mech. Good pick, though, by Ryan. They are keeping this one alive. Did also secure the second third throughout that fight. But the follow-up is here from Bacon Jack. He's been able to outflank the team now, looking to get the follow-up now, not just on Jasper, but to close out on Darrington as well. And if he can get a back-end pick on Ryan, that would be so huge for this team.
That's a huge sound barrier force out of Realman as well, because Flash Wolves got really desperate there to try and hold on to the camp. A nearly disappeared. Darrington nearly camped it up by himself, and Libalent Supreme are actually set up in a position where they can come in, get that last third. By the way, the only support ultimate, the only decent defensive ultimate off the table now for Flash Wolves. This is probably the moment for Libalent Supreme to get this.
The saving grace is once again going to be what they do have, especially Bacon Jack's Pulse Bomb, which if it kills Ryan, or even if just the one clip kills Ryan, could totally swing this. He goes in for it. This is a really intense duel to the death between these two. And of course, it's Bacon Jack who comes out the better of it as Jongy picks Celine as well. Libalent need to find a way to retreat from here, but I don't even know if that's possible. And Flash Wolves know this. They're going to go aggressive. They're going to bleed this for all it's worth and use up as much of Libalent's tiny time left.
And the timing does go away, because you said it, the little time left, and that's just, it's getting less and less by the second. Libalent Supreme, they have the opening. They don't have that opening anymore. They still have K-Ski's sound barrier, but he needs to respawn here, and they need to commit this while Flash Wolves are sitting on a ton of ultimates themselves. And that one tick, that's super defendable for Flash Wolves now.
It so is, and again, one pick from Bacon Jack's Pulse Bomb could be the secure, but it's actually going to be Zonda getting Ryan once again. This guy cannot catch a break, and instead it's going to be the follow-up onto Celine. Indeed, as the 2K comes out of the Riptire. That was a very defendable third, but Libalent didn't even get a chance to touch the point to contest that third. 93.8% is all Flash Wolves need to beat. That's basically a full cap on point A, and I would be stunned if they don't get it.
And I want to address the Riptire as well, because we sort of did mention teams have done a reasonable job of countering out the Riptire. At the same time, that wasn't Zonda on the Junkrat, right? Because Zonda so far on the Junkrat has had insane damage output. He's had insane kills that the other Junkrats that we've seen so far haven't. And the only other Junkrat we've seen is actually just Mui.
And they've actually done something kind of clever in here as well. This is something that is totally a viable thing to do with Junkrat. It depends on the positioning of the fight overall, by the way. You don't really want to do this if you're looking to get a really deep Riptire, but if you're just looking to get some damage into the mix, you can steer it in with a defense matrix, because then all that damage that would be hitting the tire, which is very squishy, is getting absorbed. And actually, that's exactly what K-Momo was doing at the end there. He was in Celine's face as it was to put pressure on him, but popped the defense matrix up so that the tire could connect and get that 2K.
And I think it shouldn't be too hard to get kills like that, because right now this is, if I'm not mistaken, still the buff tire, not the nerfed one where you have significantly less momentum. And it does appear like so far the tire has decent movement. That would at least suggest you can get some really good angles with the tire. We did actually see Mui try and get those angles, but not to the same success that Zonda has so far. So Zonda, he's definitely showing us exactly how to operate this Junkrat, at least a new Junkrat in a professional setting. He's also showing us how to operate Doomfist, the nerfed Doomfist, in a professional setting. And it does appear that Zonda is the guy that is leading the way on this new patch in terms of what we've seen, given the small amount of sample size in the season of OPC with the patch in effect.
And this is, of course, at the end of round robin number 1, picking up their first and only loss so far, but it was a significant one. They are now not kind of unparalleled in terms of first place, but Flash Wolves, first of all, looking to get a 3-0 here, setting themselves off to a good start, but they are back on the horse and looking to lead the pack.
And it seems like a more definitely a big committal from Bacon Jack onto the Hanzo. And a lie, we actually did also see Pepper onto the Junkrat. So now that's 3 Junkrat plays we've seen so far. But Zonda's still definitely the one that's had the best results.
And that's the thing, increases the sample size, sure, but if Pepper doesn't have as good a result as Zonda, then you're completely right there. Trying to get the pressure on, though, and it is actually connecting. Hasn't closed out the kills, though, so now actually Flash Wolves can wheel around, push the point. Libalent have to respect this, and as I say, that KCK getting picked is a huge open. Darrington as well, and it's already looking so dire for Libalent. Flash Wolves only need to cap out A. In fact, they don't even need to technically fully cap A. Jasper demag, the pressure is in from Zonda, and already in one fell swoop, Flash Wolves have the point. It is now on Libalent to reaggress, and I don't know if they can.
Well, they don't really have the resources to because they don't have any ultimates. They don't have area control. That all belongs to Flash Wolves. We are going to see some members come out for Zonda.
They're not even going to touch it.
Well, the one player that was going to touch it is just completely nullified by Zonda. And by the way, Zonda got away in the middle of that opening fight with such little HP. The one kill that Libalent Supreme needed to get, they couldn't secure.
That was almost an anti-climax there. It was one great fight, and then they could just kind of walk it in, Flash Wolves. And I'll tell you what, it was well-deserved as well. They really kept a lid on Libalent, who in the past did give them a run for their money. This is Flash Wolves that have gone away. They have fixed what wasn't working across round robin number 1. This was the easiest test of that, I will grant you, but they have passed it with flying colors. Now, for the second round robin, they are off to a hot start, and they want to turn that into a hot streak. This is a playoffs caliber team. I expect them to get there, and short of some disastrous results, this is looking like a team that will get there.
Exactly. I mean, they're sitting on 7-1 now, and it shows exactly why they had such a clean game. A+. I mean, you got to give this team pretty much full marks. A couple of issues surrounding Bacon Jack and Kings Row that did offer a little bit of breathing space for Libalent Supreme, but Libalent Supreme, again, also coming into the second round robin with a little bit of a disadvantage. They lose Hotane. They have to mesh with a new member. Like, Ryan wasn't as good as Bacon Jack, but that was also expected from these guys. So it wasn't an unexpected thing either. I think he played to the best that he could, and now it's about Libalent Supreme gelling with this member. But here's the recap: it is 3-0.
And like I said, Flash Wolves will be pleased with that for a variety of reasons, specifically because of the matchup that this is. I mean, as much as this was an expected win for them, like we said, they have tidied up what was going wrong for them on control. They were also able to overcome Libalent on Kings Row, and actually, this now stands as Flash Wolves' first 3-0 victory in this tournament so far. That's a pretty significant thing. Like I said, this is a team that's looking better than round robin number 1. They're looking to go on a real hot streak here. If they can repeat these sorts of performances, then when they do re-challenge Ardians eventually in this round robin, I expect they'll take it a little bit closer. But we haven't seen Ardians, so I'm not going to quite speak too soon.
And that's the thing that's going to be quite interesting, because at the end of today, we're going to see 6 teams so far in OPC season. So let's get into the replay before we talk about anything else.
So this was on the offense out of Flash Wolves. And like I said, it was one good fight, and then they were able to walk it in. And to be honest, it wasn't actually that Libalent just didn't touch the point at all. It was actually the Flash Wolves made it really hard for them to do so. They get the point here, they get the pressure on, and then see how they're positioned here. They're actually very far forward with K-Momo and Realmint. Those are hard people to get past because of the displacement. And this was really smart out of Flash Wolves. And then they combo that up by getting the close on KCK. By that point, the only person with a chance of getting close enough was Darrington, and you could just barely see it there. K-Momo instantly bumped him back. So it wasn't that Libalent didn't touch the point because they're bad or anything like that. Using the 2 members of the team with the displacement abilities, who were actually normally members that would sit back, was really smart out of Flash Wolves to ensure that they could secure it just off one fight and cut out the possibility of Libalent getting a second one.
And it does appear like Flash Wolves so far have adapted to the changes in the patch, the cleanness of any team we've seen. Small sample size because only 4 teams out of 8. It will be interesting to see what the other 4 teams look like, especially now going into Machi Mega Thunder, which comes up next. But Blank have had issues. Hong Kong Attitude don't look like they're comfortable just yet. Libalent Supreme, again, not super comfortable, but also have a new member. Ardian's going to be a very big test as well, exactly how they're going to look. But actually, I think they're going to be fine because they've been playing mainly Tracer Genji anyway. And if that's what they've been doing, there's no reason for them to stop doing that because it has been successful. So I don't expect them to be really hit by this patch.
And we even said, I mean, Flash Wolves, they're still pulling these things out. They seem ahead of the curve in terms of the patch. And they've got that Plan B team comp, which is just pulling back onto the Tracer Soldier, Bacon, Jack, and Zonda. And that's still a really great team comp that no one's even forced them onto yet. In fact, the last times we've seen them getting forced onto it, was against Ardiant, exactly. We saw it a little bit before that, but not as consistently as what Ardiant did. So that's the thing. Right now, it really does seem like as much as Flash Wolves are the only team that have given Ardiant a run for their money, Ardiant are actually the only team that can give Flash Wolves a run for their money. These are the two teams that are gunning not just for playoffs, but for grand finals as well. Like I said, neither can rest on their laurels just yet, but with picking up that win, Flash Wolves are certainly looking to make it.
Absolutely, and you have to see Flash Wolves in the coming weeks in terms of deciphering how they're going to look against those other teams, because the real test has to be when you go up against the other top 4 teams so far: Hong Kong Attitude, Blank Esports, and then Ardiant eventually. AHQ still sort of roughly around that. You got to give credit to AHQ for coming 3rd place last season, but AHQ is a big question because they didn't look super confident on even the previous patch. We're still figuring it out. They came in with Doomfist later than everyone else. By the time they brought it in, it's like, here's another patch. You just started getting used to Doomfist. Now, here's another spanner in the works, so you don't know if you want to play it anymore. And a lot of question marks on that side. So Flash Wolves, their real test yet to come. And for Libalent Supreme, the real, I guess, the final version of this team yet to come as well, because they're figuring things out, plus having a new member.
And the real thing for Libalent right now, and you can see it there in the standings, honestly, the realistic goal for them, they're probably not going to make playoffs. Something really crazy would have to happen. By the way, player of the game is going to go to Jongi on the Winston there. Pretty well deserved. But to kind of touch on what I was saying there, probably not going to make playoffs. Something pretty crazy would have to happen there. Look, it's not out of the question. Maybe a team just totally implodes. I doubt it. Yeah. But a realistic goal for them is to avoid relegations altogether. They have to be beating out Mega Thunder and Matchy both in order to do that. And part of that is relying on those teams picking up losses, but those teams are going to pick up losses against some of those top 4 teams. It's a realistic goal for them. And like you said, they've kind of got one of the hard ones out of the way.
And if nothing else, at least for this last round robin, or at least for the entire season so far, an extremely good experience for the team. And now you got a guy like Ryan coming in as well, despite only getting, I guess, 3 weeks worth of gameplay for the second round robin. He's still going to get a decent amount of gameplay in this as well. So you're right. A goal should be to sort of avoid relegations, but at the same time, even to maybe even begin preparing for those relegations. But let's get into the post-match interview. It's going to be with Bacon Jack.
跟大家打个招呼吧。
大家好，我是 Bacon Jack。
好的，这个呢，闪电狼最近有一个大问题是说，主播这边都会提到，就是你们的控制图第1章的时候都会表现得非常不好。这个你们自己知道问题出在哪吗
？What do you think that's the problem is?
其实一直以来都是我们有秉持一种打法啦。
So I think we hadn't figured out a good game play style.
适应中。
最近终于找到水准。
And the meta has really shifted, and only just recently we feeling comfortable.
之前拳王的出现嘛，就会有你跟 Ronda 同时。
So you and Zonda both play Doomfist.
再看谁状态好，然后让
And it feels like whoever's better plays it.
也会吗？
But do you play Junkrat?
没有，炸弹手通常都中拿来玩。
No, that's only Zonda. I'm not going to play it.
应该是射手太无聊了，所以他想丢个炸弹让自己。
I feel like it's personally a bit boring for me to play as well.
好啦，因为这一次，因为之前我们上次访问的时候，你是提到拳王那时候对上还不太熟悉嘛，然后表现也比较不。
So you kind of felt like last time Bacon Jack Doomfist wasn't super comfortable for you. What about now?
因为是重点是我们整体。
So I feel like it's improved. I feel like as a team we've also improved in.
对，但是我这边比较好奇的是，
可以
看到是拳王在1.14版本中，他右键被削弱。
So Doomfist Rocket Punch got nerfed specifically.
因为其实在这个版本上市的时候，很多队伍都选择不太想再出拳王。
So a lot of teams are now avoiding the pick.
没有人出的原因，重点不是他右键啊，重点是他。
I actually feel like
天敌就是战狼死。
I feel like the real reason you don't see Doomfist is not because of his nerf, but because Junkrat exists.
因为你们已经在上周是跟阿亮的对战。
You played Ardiant last week.
见到强力，那我想这边以你们的状况来说还不错，也是为。
So you actually look good against Ardiant.
就是看一下是其他正在崛起的一些队伍，像是 HK 啊，或者是。
It feels like other teams.
什么样的一些想法这样子？
It feels like other teams didn't really touch them, but you guys did.
进步很多，特别是母语加入 HK。
I feel like Hong Kong Attitude has improved a lot though, especially with Mui joining.
应该不会，
应该不会吗？好，是
因为我们没有，我们重点还是在 ARP 身上啦。
哦，重点还是大家感觉大家敌人都是他们，对。
It feels like you know for Bacon Jack the target is still Ardian and not so much Hongkong.
一点意思，那就是我可以透一点点，就是你们觉得之后你们会出什么样的阵型为主，或者是以什么样的主轴去做练习
So what are you focusing on for compositions now?
我刚才都听到炸弹鼠了，对不对？
对
I heard Junkrat.
以重打炸弹鼠为主吧。
I feel like more Zonda Junkrat might be in the
所
works.
以说你现在你觉得拳王是因为炸弹鼠的关系
So
变
you
得
feel like
弱势
Doomfist doesn't get played
你自己
because of
是因为
Junkrat?
你自己本身在练习的时候，你就常常被炸弹鼠。
But do you feel like you died to Junkrat as a Doomfist
其
player?
实我们大家都一样啊，因为连季总都说很 OP。
大家都说炸弹
I
鼠
think well actually everyone feels that way. I think even Jongi says he feels Junkrat feels a little bit OP. So there's a few thoughts from Bacon Jack and another I sort of have a different angle take onto you know the current situation. But it does, you know, everything considered, observationally, they still seem like the team that has adapted to this new patch the best.
Really does seem that way so far. And that's not just compared to Libalent Supreme, because we have also seen Blank and Hong Kong Attitude, who both just seem to be finding their feet a little bit. And indeed, we'll still see more teams as well. We'll see how they adapt to this patch.
And two more teams are still coming up for the rest of the evening, or rather to round out the rest of the evening. It's going to be Mega Thunder taking on Machi Esports. So the final match of Week 4, Day 1 will be coming up very, very soon. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.